Is the Backrooms better without entities? A question which I'll be attempting to find out today. The Backrooms is a phenomenon which has become pretty popular in recent years, however the origins of it come from a 4chan thread in, you guessed it, the paranormal board. Because it's always the fucking paranormal board. The original post that the first ever image of the Backrooms actually came from was a thread asking others to post photos of what they believed were disquieting images that just felt off. Underneath the now well-known image is where we can find the first description of the Backrooms itself. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. And then, obviously, we know the story from there. Over time, the Backrooms has gained a lot of popularity and has made itself common with the concepts of liminal spaces. Now, to best describe what a liminal space is, it's things like corridors, stairs, mostly being described as a transitional space between two places. Liminal spaces can also refer to mental and emotional gaps, but purely for today's video, we're going to be focusing on the physical aspect. In the case of the Backrooms, liminal spaces can basically just be wrapped up to places that are just empty and devoid of people and just gives off this vibe that you've been there before, but now there's no one here. And a big word that likes to be thrown around is the uncanniness of these areas. Just that something doesn't feel right about it. But Wolfram, what does this have to do with the entities? I'm glad you asked. Me. Another popular aspect of the Backrooms is its entities, and something that you'll find with these entities, and overall just the Backrooms levels themselves, is that there is a lot of them that have kind of garnered this very SCP-esque vibe about them. I mean, we have wiki pages, level numbers, classes. It is a hell of a lot like the SCPs. And I'm not saying that in like an over-copying the SCP Foundation way. I genuinely think that it's a really good concept, and it adds quite a bit of lore and story to the concept of the Backrooms. It also makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to get information for this video. And for a lot of today's video, I'm going to be using these wikis, specifically the Meg wiki and the Fandom wiki, to get my information because it just makes the most sense. But what I'm going to be looking into is both what the Backrooms is like on its own, just the base empty loneliness of it all, and then compare that to what most of the Backrooms is now known for. And obviously I know that certain levels don't actually have entities, and that's like the whole idea of it, that each level has its own threats that you have to deal with, and there's like environmental hazards, and I will keep this in mind as we go through them. Also, to make it fair between the two, I'll be going through the first 5 levels for each side because that's also where a lot of sub-levels are, and it's also where the most well-known levels are. I'd also like to say that there's no definitive better between the two. They each are good at their own different things, but for a main criteria, we'll be going for something a lot more like the original post of the Backrooms. As in the original post of the Backrooms, it describes the place as being empty and endless, like there is nothing around for miles. However, it also pertains to the fact that there might be something else in there with you. Not that there like specifically is, but that there may be. So straight off the bat, my first 2 criteria is gonna be 1, how big and empty it is, or otherwise you can just call it how liminal the space is. And 2, how paranoid does it make me feel? Even if nothing is actually there, how convinced would I be that something might be in there with me? And it's not actually pertained in the original post, but I feel like it adds to what would be important to you at the time, which is 3, how do I get out? Like, I want to go home. And 4, how do I eat? Because if you can't eat, you die. Because if there's nothing to eat or drink or just thrive off, then you're not gonna live long enough to get the full effect of the Backrooms to hit, you know? And then when it comes to judging the entities of the location, I'm just gonna go off of how much do they actually fit the vibe of the Backrooms. Like, do they ruin it? Is it still scary? Are they buggying it down? And then of course we have the big one. how likely am I to live here, or just with any encounter to the entities? But with this criteria, let's get into the backrooms without the entities. We'll be going through the first 5 levels without the entities, and then I'm gonna go back through and explain the entities for each level. So just talking long term, you wouldn't be able to fully thrive in this version of the backrooms due to one major problem: the effects of loneliness on the human mind. Now, if you don't know me by now, I am a big fucking psychology nerd, so of course the first major thing that I want to start with is that being alone in the backrooms for so much time, you would start to see the effects. So whether or not you would manage to find a sustainable way of living in any of these levels, you have the problem of how the mind works without a lot of social interaction. So assuming the fact that without the entities there's also no people, or just a severe lack of people at the very least. So I just ended up going with there being no entities, not that there was no people either, because there is people in the backrooms, except just for level 0 there are none. I explain it in a moment, just ignore the fact when I'm talking about there being no people. You're not going to be interacting with a whole lot of people, and due to this, you can begin to have the effects of increased stress, increased anxiety, increased depression, and even a higher risk of just straight up mortality. So just being alone in the backrooms, you could just keel over and fucking die. But even if you manage to find a way of living in the backrooms, if you don't find a way out soon, then you're just not gonna be happy, no matter how much of an introvert you are. You're not gonna be a happy person. But keeping this in mind when we're looking through these empty backrooms levels, let's get into the level that started it all. Level 0 is a location primarily resembled by its yellow wallpaper, damp moist carpet, and fluorescent lighting. The area is known to be practically endless and infinite, and the sound of buzzing fluorescence will follow you, as it's described as notably louder and more obtrusive than ordinary fluorescent lighting. It's noted that the liquid in the carpet can change, however that it isn't water and definitely shouldn't be consumed. Something which you'll find on a lot of levels is that the level is described as being non-linear. You can go in absolutely one direction only to end up in the total other direction. The example given in the wiki is that it is possible to walk in a straight line and return to the starting point, and retracing your steps will result in a different set of rooms appearing than the ones you've already passed through. So combining in the fact that the space is completely empty and infinite, you also get absolutely nowhere by walking around in it. And trying to gain any sense of direction in this place is almost impossible. This is because things like compasses, GPS devices, and radios all fail to work in this level, or if they do, it is insanely unreliable. While there is a very easy way to exit this level, it's presumed that a lot of people will suffer from dehydration, starvation, and even stated specifically, psychological trauma due to sensory deprivation and isolation. All of this before they even get close to exiting the level. So once again, bringing back in the idea of there's only so long that the human mind can go on for, just being by itself, until eventually it just decides to give up. So that would already be a very daunting experience in and of itself. It's like an infinite car ride, but you have absolutely nothing to entertain yourself, and the outside view is just fuck all. It would only be a matter of time before you fucking went insane. And even if you decide for whatever reason to enter this level with a group of people, you will all become separated until you manage to exit the level. Just for whatever reason, there's just this power around the level that forces you to be on your own no matter what. Like, you can walk into the room with a group of 5 people, they will all just evaporate into thin air. It is also stated that for this level, you are likely to develop both auditory and visual hallucinations, such as humming from the lights increasing to a deafening volume and then abruptly silencing, the appearance of doors, the appearance of stairs, acute deja vu, human-like speech resembling no known language, movement in peripheral vision resembling insects crawling underneath the wallpaper, which disappears once the wall is observed directly, and insect-like chittering. And written underneath this, it says, according to analysis, the CO2 levels within level 0 are rising at a steady rate. The significance of this is unknown. Which you can kinda start to think of the level as just one big stuffy room. I mean, have you ever had your parents or whoever you're living with tell you to open up a window and let the air in because it's really stuffy? That is because of your own breath. When we breathe, we take oxygen out of the air and release CO2, so if you were in a room with no windows or doors, you are eventually going to run out of air and suffocate. And since this level doesn't have any windows and very few doors compared to its infinite space, there is only so much oxygen to go around in there. The main troubles with level 0 itself is that there's no food, there's no water, there's no people, and most of all, there's dwindling oxygen. So while you might not have the trouble of some big scary monster entity coming for you, you have to find a way out before you eventually succumb to either your physical body needs, so eating and drinking, or your own mental brain needs. So the slow descent to insanity that you will experience due to all of these hallucinations and a lack of real people. The possible big kicker being the specific hallucination of being able to hear a vaguely human voice, only to never find it. But coming up to our criteria, 1, how big and empty is it? Well, I mean, the space is infinite, and with the only thing other than the walls and the floors being the fluorescent yellow lights, I would say that it's pretty empty. Number 2, how paranoid does it make me feel? The combination of both the hallucinations and your own lack of care that would go on over time, and the massive feelings of isolation that would come with being in a big empty space all by yourself no matter whatever or not you came here with others originally, it would definitely set off those effects we talked about earlier. I feel like it would only be a matter of time before I became convinced that I wasn't alone, even if I very much was. 3, how do I get out? Well, according to the wiki, the only way to fully exit level 0 is to no-clip yourself out of it, and to get into level 1. However, if you have no idea what that means, there really is no way out. Not unless you find yourself into a sub-level, but we'll get to that in a moment. And how do I eat? You don't. Overall, level 0 is just a ticking time bomb of a location. Even without the threat of something coming to get you, you still have the worries of your actual physical and mental survivability to worry about. And if you don't know what you're doing before you end up there, your fate is pretty much already sealed in a slow awaitance for some part of you to shut down as you spiral more and more into the psychological horror of isolation. That is unless you find a sub-level. Sub-levels are, as you can guess, levels inside of other levels or just majorly notable locations within the level. For level 0, we have, starting off, 0.1, also known as Zenith Station. Zenith Station is a giant megastructure contained around or within level 0. It bears a very futuristic style, however a large part of it is heavily degraded and damaged. Inside of the megastructure, you can find brightly lit rooms such as bedrooms, kitchens, gyms, and even greenhouses. However, these are also under a massive state of disrepair. It has those same qualities that level 0 has, notably the isolation, hallucinations, and lack of working GPS devices. It can be entered by simply walking into it from level 0 and can be exited to level 1 in the same way that you would with level 0, by no clipping. Which, I haven't explained it yet, but no clipping is you run into a wall. you run into a wall or you fall on the ground and you fall through. You go straight through and you go to the other place. That is no clipping. This whole area is just very similar to level 0, but just with a futuristic vibe and the added hazard of very unreliable temperatures that just, the whole place just isn't structurally sound either. It's just, you don't really want to be there. Then we have 0.2, which is Remodeled Mess. The sublevel just kind of looks like a remodeled and revamped version of level 0. The carpet is now dry and has a very nice red color. The walls have been painted white and even includes working Wi-Fi, outlets, and sometimes even bathrooms. It was created due to a group of people called the Backrooms Remodeling Company, which I don't think I need to explain the name. However, upon entering the area, everything will just begin to fall apart. Ceiling tiles will fall off the roof, walls will break down, and floors will begin to just collapse under you, all to reveal what just looks like a house during its construction. And obviously this is very dangerous. I mean, you can get an injury from any of the things that I just mentioned. And in a place like level 0, you definitely don't want that. To both enter and exit this area, you just need to find a singular door that leads there whilst wandering level 0 itself. And upon entering the location after its destruction, if you choose for whatever reason to return, you'll find that everything is back in its place until you walk back in again. This area should never be entered due to obvious reasons. And then for 0.3, we have the icy rooms, which is literally just level 0. But there's ice everywhere. And then we have below 0, which, by the way, there is a lot of sublevels for specifically level 0, the rest of them don't have this many. If you were to fall into any pitfall in level 0, you'll end up in below 0. And after falling for several hours, you'll end up in a deep space of water at a safe speed, no matter how fast you were originally going. The below 0 sublevel has multiple parts of it, the first being the Anodyne Complex, or Anodyne, however you want to pronounce it. In this area, you'll find yourself in a bunch of long concrete tunnels where instead of the very loud fluorescent buzz you heard back in level 0, you instead have the deep hum of the hallways itself, where the lights may sometimes pop and cause glass to go everywhere and for a really loud screeching noise to come down the hall. However, if you walk long enough around these hallways, you may find a rusty steel hatch, which, if you choose to look into or go into for whatever fucking reason, you'll find the bog, which just purely for this side of the argument is now completely empty. Usually it has like a lot of bugs and stuff in there, but we'll come back to that later on. The bog is just a massive area of water and it's very unsafe to explore unless you bring some kind of diving gear, as the water is very dirty and filled with bacteria and has very small air pockets above it. The only ways out of this area is to either be sucked into the Overburst Aquarium, which has no info on it right now, or to go back through the same rusty hatch that you entered from and to go back to the Anodyne Complex. If you walk for long enough, you will start to find that the corridors enter a state of disrepair. This is the unfixed passages, and if you don't heed the warning of the environment's quality, then you'll find yourself trapped in as the corridor gets tighter and tighter. For our next sublevel, we have the Echo Chamber, which if you fall into a dark pit, not to be mistaken with the pitfalls for below 0, you may possibly find a cult and become a part of a singularity, I think? We also have the Manila Room, which the Manila Room is a square room inside of level 0 which is distinct for its beige wallpaper instead of the yellow ones you'd find in the rest of level 0. The room can be found in different arrangements of a couple of tables and chairs, and you can have between 1 to 4 different entrances at a time. And unlike the rest of level 0, you can actually find people here. However, we'll talk about this later on when I talk about the entities. Ignore that, we're talking about the people now. In the Manila Room, you can find people unlike the rest of level 0, they just kind of apparate through the doorways in the room. So it's kind of a concern to try and not walk through the door at the same time as someone else, or you may accidentally phase into someone. But yeah, no, unlike the rest of the back rooms, the Manila Room does have people in it, they just kind of appear there when they walk through the door. Which means that the room is used as kind of a trading information center for people in level 0. That is all. The lights in the room are similar to the ones in the rest of level 0, however they can fluctuate in volume and brightness, and at sometimes can even cause periods of complete darkness. If you somehow manage to end up in the red rooms, you'll find that the lights are now a red hue and the carpet is sticky instead of moist, and there is just a lot of mushrooms and mold everywhere. If you enter the area, you'll experience feelings of disgust, despair, and paranoia, as well as feelings of claustrophobia. It is heavily advised not to enter the area, and if you see red lights, just don't go in there. Like, it's heavily advised that you don't go anywhere near the red rooms, because once you enter them, you cannot get out. There is no exit to the red rooms. And then we have the Torment. You're seeking knowledge, I presume. You want meaning? You want to know the ins and outs of this anomalous reality? I understand you humans are curious, however I would strongly discourage you from venturing any further. You wanderers don't know what you're getting yourselves into. Perhaps you never learned the truth. Unfortunately, this place cannot provide that. Neither can this database, your consciousness nor your belief system. Backrooms is infinite. Your mind can only comprehend so much before it self-destructs. So there you remain, a speck of sand on the beach, tormented by the crashing waves. Your time in the backrooms will be full of endless suffering. No matter how much you attempt to control your fate, the more you learn about the backrooms, the more your fragile mind falls apart. Perhaps your strong-willed mind initially withstood the crashing waves of truth, but your journey, unfortunately, must come to an end. Eventually the powerful waves will overwhelm you and win. It's only a matter of time before they finally wash you away and send you here, a metaphysical representation of purgatory. And to the beyond? Don't say I didn't warn you. The Torment is an area in level 0 that is described as being grayscale in color. It had been recorded to appear for a short period of time before disappearing again. Along with this, the 5 witnesses that had entered the Torment described feelings of dread. The area has a perfect circle of graves surrounded by a stone statue of a hooded figure. The ground is covered in dead leaves and scream when being stepped on. The only light in this area is a single moon in the sky, and the rest of the zone is covered in darkness. A thick grey fog surrounding it all, which only allows visibility of about 5 feet in front of you, and produces shivering in whoever is unlucky enough to have been standing in it. The whole sublevel is really mysterious, and we don't really know a lot more about it. Level 0, even without any entities, still manages to give off this very eerie paranoia-inducing experience that you only have a matter of time until you succumb to some horrible fate at the hand of whatever runs out first. Whether it's by starvation, suffocation, or whatever else, level 0 is a horrible place to be, and I wouldn't have any doubt in my mind that the slow descent to insanity that you'd experience there would be absolutely terrifying. Especially with the possibility of there being the Torment around. Level 1 is a massive warehouse made of concrete and exposed rebar. There's a low fog that hovers around the whole level, and due to this there are many puddles around the level, and unlike level 0, level 1 has a very constant supply of water and electricity, which means that this level is already far more hospitable than level 0. There is also a lot more places to explore here, as the level includes a lot of staircases, elevators, rooms, and hallways. Throughout the level, you can also find a different variety of crates full of different supplies such as food, batteries, weapons, clothing, medical supplies, and almond water. Because, for some reason, specifically almond water just appeared all over the backrooms via an unknown method one day. So now there's just almond water everywhere. There's also a lot of other more random items in these crates, like car parts, mice, and just random shit, so it's said that you should at least take caution when looking through these crates. There are also a lot of paintings and drawings that can appear on the floor and the walls of the level that will appear and disappear if you choose to look away from them. The lighting of the level can be inconsistent and is prone to shutting off and flickering every now and then, and we'll come back to why that's important later. But during these moments of darkness, items, crates, anything that isn't like just kind of attached to the level, like the walls and stuff, will just vanish, or can at least have the possibility to just vanish. It's why it's suggested that if you choose to sleep in the level, to hold onto your stuff very tightly, because if you don't, there'll be no more stuff. And it's here in this level that you can find a major base of one of the groups in the backrooms, this group being the MEG alongside the group BNTG. And it's essentially just a big trader city and has a pretty rudimentary, societal structure. So if you were gonna stay somewhere in the backrooms to live, and you were too afraid to continue looking for a way out or didn't want to suffer the horrors waiting for you in the other levels, then it'd be a pretty decent place to stay. Combining this with another location called Tom's Diner, which is a diner ran by a man named Tom, it seems like a pretty neat place to stay. Obviously, to enter the level, you simply no-clip here from level 0, as well as a few other methods, such as climbing the trees in level 11.1, and a few others. However, to leave, you just need to simply explore. If you travel down a long hallway, you'll end up at level 2, traveling through a hole in the wall will get you to level 19, and if you find paintings on the ceiling, no-clipping will take you to a party, quote-unquote. As for any additional notes on the location, there are a few recovered notes found around level 1 that usually, appear in the walls and stuff. The artist lives in me. The artist dies in me. Won't you stay for the after party? Burn my fucking body. The bluebird beckons you, soothes you. You'll feel safe here. And also, to really quickly talk about that one, I'm just realizing now as I'm doing these notes, that note in particular, the bluebird, that is talking about Jerry, who Jerry is an entity that we'll get to later, but he's a bluebird. That's all you need to know for now. Black Queen to H5, and that's checkmate. Watch the clock. The final prophecy draws near. Compared to level 0, you would probably feel a lot safer here. I mean, 1, yeah, it's pretty big, but there's a lot of people and settlements that you are very likely to find due to them being pretty close to the entrance of the level. 2, once again, there's a lot of people here, although if you were on your own and the fucking lights started flickering and, everything went dark randomly, it would be pretty freaky. 3, it's pretty easy to get out, and even if you can't, you're relatively safe here. If you just stay in the city, you'll be fine. And once again, for number 4, there's a lot of crates around, and the city and the diner are there for food, so surviving wouldn't be a problem here. Your only problem would be if you had a problem with living in a weird warehouse city for the rest of your life. Level 1 has a few less sub-levels than level 0. Starting off with level 1.1, the Corrupted Corridor, which is a long straight corridor that goes on for an unknown distance. The walls are made of painted cinder blocks and the floor is made of blue tiles. And this blue and white theme continues on as you go through the hallway. Through the cracks in the walls and ceiling, you may see exposed vents or pipes. The crates from the rest of level 1 also appear here, however they become less common as you continue down the corridor, and it is very ill-advised to try and get to the end, as many have tried, but none have succeeded. As you travel further and further down the corridor, you'll go through a few sectors that become more and more unsafe the further you travel. Sector 1. For the first 10 to 15 miles, it'll be a relatively normal corridor with fluorescent lights, much like the ones from level 0. There isn't really much danger here. Sector 2. A lot of the area will begin to glitch out, and it's very possible to accidentally no-clip back to the main area of level 1. The floor is very often slanted, making it harder to walk on, and can even be found at angles which create steep hills and deep drops. And this only gets worse the further you travel. The colors of the hallway may also begin to shift, and the hallway may begin to repeat identically, and those pipes and vents I mentioned before will start to block the path ahead of you. In Sector 3, the zone becomes very unreliable and unsafe to travel through as it becomes more and more unstable, and the whole thing is now just shrouded in darkness. Flashlights and the lights above you do not change the level of darkness at all, however there are some sections of occasional light. The roof is a lot taller than the previous sectors, and for unknown reasons the whole area just smells faintly like antiseptic. In Sector 4, which is the most dangerous and the furthest recorded sector of the corridor, takes on a black and white color palette and, according to the wiki, undulates wildly, making it nearly impossible to navigate. Survivors reported experiencing acute vertigo, nausea, and a loss of equilibrium. Much of this sector has no collision. No clipping through the level drops one into a presumably endless void. And the void is really just not a place that you want to go to. There are also theories of there being a 5th sector, however no one has actually been able to get there. Sublevel 1.5, also known as Inverted. Not much is known about this level due to it, like, the only records being all jumbled up due to the nature of the level, but what we do know is that the entire level is just backward. For example, instead of fluorescent light, they have fluorescent dark. But just overall, we know literally almost nothing about the level due to just the way of the nature of it, and just it's really hard to get information out of the level because nobody knows how to get there, nobody knows how to get out, and any information that we are sent from the level gets all jarbled up and turned into just a bunch of like oogie googie fucking inverted nonsense. The Trader's Vault. The Trader's Vault is just a big supply storage used by the fucking BNTG guys I was talking about earlier. However, sometimes objects are known to disappear and reappear or to be replaced by something entirely new. But overall, it's literally just a storage place used by that trader city I was talking about before. Overall, level 1 is pretty safe, and if you do choose to stay here, you will be relatively fine. And unlike with level 1, you are far less likely to suffer the same fate as you would because they have food, water, people, and other supplies here. However, if you do choose to continue, you will find yourself at level 2. This is also a pattern that you'll start to see with the Backrooms. Every now and then you'll find some kind of safe place that you can either choose to stay at or to continue. I'd talk more about this later on. Coming into level 2, we'll find ourselves in what looks like a set of old abandoned utility tunnels. The tunnels themselves are all really cramped due to either how they are built or due to the large machinery that are in them. This, combined with the hanging wires, dirty concrete, and exposed bricks, it'll start to make it so that you begin to question why you didn't just stay in level 1. On the walls of the tunnels themselves, you find this very chalky, powdery material. And due to the way that some of the tunnels are built, you may only just be able to squeeze through some area, meaning that the chalk will get on you, and if it does, then you'll see the effects of there being marks and stains and possibly even bruises if it gets on your skin. It's been noted that a lot of the machinery and piping that you'll find in the level doesn't actually do anything to work together, and instead they just kind of connect to each other to provide working electricity. But apart from that, most of the machines don't actually do anything. However, you'll also find that a lot of the machines will just generate whirring noises as if they were broken, and the pipes connecting them all together are possible to transfer certain fluids, electricity, gases, and occasionally solid objects. And around the machinery, you can also find objects which are common with industrial types of places, mostly things like handheld tools. Flatbed trolleys will also make a common appearance here and may hold objects like boxes, sometimes with important materials in them, paper scraps, and old tools. Sometimes, if you look down at the floor, you'll occasionally find bits of broken glass from old light bulbs popping. However, you may also find them in areas that you wouldn't think you would, because there'll be no light bulbs around. In this level, you may also find toolboxes, wood piles, dismantled machine pieces, rusted pipes, step ladders, large extension cords, power tools, and fold-out chairs. The lighting of this level is, as always, a majority of buzzing fluorescent lights, and are a lot further away from each other than in previous levels. They are mostly made up of either white or orange light. And in casual people fashion, since a lot of the lights have exposed wiring, a lot of people have begun to harvest the copper inside of the wires from themselves, sometimes even taking the entire light with them. And because of this, and possibly just how the level itself is built, a lot of the tunnels just don't have any light in them. This is also due to just the horrible lighting that these lights have. Just in a short analogy, the lights in this level work a lot like Christmas tree lights. If one breaks, then all the ones in the area will break. This is just due to the fact that like all the wires connect them together. But, like, in a way of it's just one after the other, so if one breaks, all the rest do. In the areas where there are no machinery or wires, you can find doors ranging from different materials, colors, and sizes. However, the most common is usually just a steel door. However, for a large majority of these doors, they will be locked, and for the ones that are open, at least the ones that don't lead to other levels, you can find A large complex of corridors and rooms containing either larger equipment, large PCs, wooden boxes, or just a large storage warehouse. A series of long hallways usually leading you back to where you came from, except these will usually just be in the style of an office hallway instead of an industrial one. Just a big old empty room. And usually if you are to find a locked door with a window on it, if you were to look into it, you would just see the void. Now, there are a lot of groups on this floor, at least there used to be. These notable groups will include the Meg, the BNTG, the Aiding Stragglers, and the Machina. And a large majority of these groups decided to move out of the level either for their own reasons or due to the massive blackout that occurred. During the time that the BNTG were situated in this level, a massive blackout occurred that at the time members of the BNTG thought were only affecting their location, the EL3A. However, after sending some people to go and get help, it was then that they found that the whole entire level had just completely blacked out due to what they assumed was a short circuit fault, assumably caused by an addition of a faulty battery being added to the system. But for the next 2 years, the level would be completely plummeted into the dark, causing certain exits to go unfunctional, things like elevators just stopped working, and certain pipes just began to accumulate a lot of materials and would begin to burst, leak, and leave certain parts of the level smelling just like absolute rotting meat. Also, due to the lower amount of extra exits, a couple of the locked doors just seemingly unlocked during the blackout, allowing entrance to what is known as the void rooms, which, as you can guess, is just an endless void and you don't want to go there. However, after a while, some kind of emergency lighting was enabled and the level was now lit up in a violet light. However, after power had seemingly been restored to the level, things had started to go back to normal. But who's to say it won't happen again? And while a lot of the groups have considered setting up in level 2 after the blackout, the major reasons why they don't is usually due to the lack of food and medical supplies, and therefore they would have to rely on importing materials, which, in a place like the Backrooms, is definitely not reliable. Now, the only indication that there was a blackout is the fact that certain areas of the level are still without power, or are running on very little power. Now, there are a lot of entrances to the level, the ones that we've talked about being coming in from level 1, but you can also get in through levels like 2.2 and 8, and there's even some negative levels in there. However, for exits, you'll usually find them in the forms of just unlocked doors leading to level 3 or elevators, etc. But for our criteria, 1, it's pretty big, however not so much empty. I feel like having all the objects and the machinery, as well as a pretty big and notable base, the EL3, kinda takes a lot away from the empty part. 2, on the scale of paranoia, I think that industrial style buildings do give off the vibe that you're not supposed to be here, and especially so if you were to have been there during the blackout. The very maze-like structure of this level combined with the random spouts of darkness would make the level a lot freakier than if it was fully lit. And combine this with the fact that there's doors which lead to the actual fucking void. Nuh-uh. Free to get out, you just need to find the right doors. However, if you don't know what you're looking for, you could easily mistake a door for something else, and the maze-like structure would once again make it extremely hard to find the right one. 4. There's no food here. So we are right back to the problem of level 0, where you only have a matter of time before you succumb to some horrible fate if you're unlucky enough to run out of supplies before exiting the level. Just overall, coming to this level, you start to just be like, why the fuck did you leave level 1? Like, in level 1 you had the safety of the city, coming into level 2, all of that is fucking ripped away from you again. For sub-levels, we can start with level 2.2. An area which is very similar to the actual warehouse sections of level 2 itself. However, a constant buzzing of bees can be heard. This is due to the absolutely massive amount of beehives being stored in this level, and I mean massive. You might as well call it the fucking bee rooms. And as expected, there are multiple types of bees that can be found here, namely the bumblebees, carpenter bees, honeybees, and rarely sweat bees. A lot of people in this level would choose to just eat the honey out of the hives, and if you've just come from level 2, then you would probably do so too, because you're not gonna fucking find anything else for a long while. The bees are just regular bees, however, due to the fact that they travel in groups, if you piss one off, you piss them all off. And many people have reportedly died just from trying to either eat the honey, swat the bees away, or if you are a cruel, horrible person, stomp on them. Because if you choose to stomp on a fucking bee and then its family comes and kills you, that is completely on you. Like, that is completely your fault. To enter the sub-level, it's speculated that you just need to go for an event in level 3, or that 1 in every 777 doors will take you there. And to leave, you just need to find a door that leads back to level 2 or 3. And then we also have the office space of the EL3A itself, which is home to about 30 of the BNTG's members. The space was constructed by the BNTG in order to set up a big main base in level 2. The whole place is just a big mix of office and warehouse and contains a large variety of different supplies. It's noted that it's probably the most hospitable place that you can find in the level, however it is also known to increase in temperatures, sometimes going up to ones that are just really fucking hazardful. For example, it's been recorded that the temperatures can rise up to 35 degrees Celsius, which that's 95 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans. This is just because of its very faulty ventilation systems. Apart from this, it is a very relatively safe area. It's the next day. The construction people are gone. I can talk normally now. Level 3 is where things really begin to pick up again, as the area just resembles that of a lot of long, twisting, dark hallways that work very much like those of level 0. Just a whole bunch of random rooms and hallways connecting together with seemingly no pattern to it, most of which are extremely loud and contain noises of a bunch of machinery. And a lot like level 2, a lot of the hallways are very narrow and closed in, even requiring people of average height to have to bend down, hunch, or even crawl in order to fit through some of the level. The level is made up mostly with brick, copper pipes, and mechanical parts. The ceiling is made entirely out of metal, and the floor is a very grey, dull tile. Level 3 is one of the larger recorded levels, coming in at an estimated 350 million square miles, or around 563 million square kilometers. Which makes it very rare to come across another person, and very likely that in your time here, you might not come across another person at all. And although the level includes some very similar features to level 0, it also has the differences of a few key items scattered around the level. One such being a wall of prison bars, which to this day, any attempts to get around or break by breaking the bars on the walls have been unsuccessful, and so any attempt to travel past this point has just been undocumented because we can't get past them. It's been found that in this area with prison bars, explorers have noted feelings of fear and extreme discomfort. So that means we're back on the psychological snaz again. And wanderers sometimes even claim that they're being watched by some unknown entity. As well as sharing features with level 0, level 3 shares some similarities with level 2. This being that level 3 contains a lot of pipes and machinery, and these pipes actually carry a black sludge, and the sounds of it carrying this black sludge will travel through the pipes, and it's one of the key noises in this level, and the reason why it is just so goddamn loud in this place. Times where this black sludge has been found outside of the pipes, it has been noted to be highly toxic and emits poisonous fumes which can become deadly. It will also damage the body's nervous system if it is to be inhaled. As well as if it gets on your skin, it can cause 2nd to 3rd degree burns. So just stay away from the black goop no matter what. Throughout the level, you may also find spare electrical rooms which vary in its content, however will often contain a single generator along with breaker boxes, computers, wires, and camera monitors. And of course sometimes, fluorescent lights. And while the level is extremely dangerous, it is very useful due to it including a supply of almond water, false outlets, liquid pain, fire salt, royal rations, squirt guns, and bottled lightning. Because yes, they are all objects in the Backrooms, however other objects outside of that can be knives, lighters, bolt cutters, flashlights, and other miscellaneous weapons or supplies. And funnily enough, this is the level with the best reported Wi-Fi, so if you feel like scrolling the fucking web whilst you're here, why not? One of the major dangers of this level is the fact that the temperatures can rise to be about 18 to 33 degrees Celsius or 66 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit on average. However, it has been known to rise to about 57 degrees Celsius or 135 degrees Fahrenheit. As well as this, there are reported to be areas of damp, thick air, which makes it very hard to breathe in these areas. Oh yeah, and also seemingly at random, due to the automatic nature of the machines in the level, they can just fucking explode if they want to. So if you see a fucking big machine in this level that's just whirring away, be careful around them. There are a few bases around the level, however, due to the absolutely humongous size of the level, it's very unlikely for you to run into them. And with a few of them being the masked maidens, who it's been noted that they shouldn't be trusted, they will fucking kill you. They should just be avoided anyway. To enter the level, like we've said before, you can simply enter through level 2, however elevators on level 4 and level 5 will also lead you here, as well as bunkers on level 10 and some buildings in level 11. To exit the level, you can just leave via elevators to level 4 and 5, as well as this wooden door that may lead you to level 31. And if you happen to find a car seat and sit in it for a while, you'll pass out and end up on level 69. Which, yes, whilst that's a funny number, it's not a good fucking place to be. For criteria, 1, once again, the area is pretty big, however, it's pretty 50-50 on the emptiness depending on if there's machinery in the room or not. 2, I think the biggest thing to worry about here would be things like the temperature, air density, and the fact that at any point whilst you're walking around, something could just blow up and end you right then and there for no apparent reason. Also, people like the fucking masked maidens are walking about and could just fucking jump you, I don't know. 3, getting out seems pretty simple. I think the main problem would just be due to how big the area is and how dangerous it is. It just might be a matter of finding it before something else finds you. But just due to the humongous size of the level itself, that might take a while. And 4, there's no food here. The closest thing that you'd really have is if you're lucky enough to find something like almond water. However, if you can't, then you'll once again be running off of whatever you found before coming to level 2. So you wouldn't really have much left if you just came from level 2. For sub-levels, we only have level 3.1, also known as the Space Complex, due to the fact that in the area you can find a lot of spacecrafts or machinery relating to said spacecrafts. And unlike level 3, the rooms in this area are made up of really clean, light grey tiles. They have a really big contrast to the industrial hell of regular level 3. The area is lit up by big industrial lights, however some rooms have been found to be lit via neon light instead. According to the wiki, all rooms are connected by long, narrow corridors. These walls are filled with gas pipes and copper cables. These cables are functional and transmit energy like they normally would. Because of this, it's recommended that one looks out for any damage or uninsulated cables, as they could potentially harm the wanderer. These narrow corridors can almost always lead to another room, which will either be a large open area filled with lots of machinery and spacecrafts, or a circular room that stretches deep below the ground level, not dissimilar to a silo, and houses a singular rocket with no specified model or manufacturer. The only exception to this is the rare case of corridors leading to dead ends, which is fortunately highly unlikely to occur. Just, the whole place is generally a much nicer looking, more high-tech version of the rest of level 3, and much like the rest of level 3, the dangers here are heavily rewarded by the items, which are in pretty decent supply here. There are also a lot of outlets which allow you to charge up quite a lot of the devices that you might have on you at this point. Unlike level 3, when traveling in the hallways between rooms, the Wi-Fi may falter and can generally be a lot less reliable compared to the other parts of the level. And much like level 3, the temperatures are still very high here due to the large amounts of active machinery. Occasionally whilst walking about, you may come across a rare staircase, which is what allows you to both leave and enter the sub-level between level 3 and 4. Overall, level 3 kind of brings back a little more risk to it, and much like with level 0, you can just put yourself in danger by wandering about, and if you don't know any exit, you might begin to suffer some of the problems that you would have in level 0, due to just the lack of people and the lack of food. And for our final level, on the side of not talking about the entities, we have level 4, which is the 5th level because we started on 0. Level 4 resembles that of an empty office. There is almost no furnishings to be found, although in the rooms, windows are a very common occurrence. We'll come back to this later. Due to the safe nature of the level, a lot of people are known to reside here due to the variety of water coolers, vending machines, and fountains contained in the level itself. As well as this, level 4 is just really easy to exit and return to, and it's heavily suggested for you to use this location to stock up on supplies and to meet other groups before continuing on to later levels. Because coming from levels 2 and 3, you won't likely have much left, and while we won't talk about them today, you'll also be needing to stock up due to the levels which come after this one, namely 5 and 6. On the wiki, they are known to be unsafe, or at least their safety is questionable. And as to be expected, there are a couple of groups here, namely another meg base and the Amor Incrementum, a cult which worships agriculture, and possibly one of my favorite groups, TBD, also known as To Be Determined, because they are literally just a group of about 6 people who sit in one of the corners of the level and hoards items. They will just completely ignore you unless you choose to interact with them, and when trading, they will only trade for, as the wiki says, really strange objects that don't really have a function. Like, these guys are just being absolute fucking goblins in the back rooms, and I am all here for it. To enter the level, you just have to no-clip through a wall in the hub, which is essentially just a hub for the different levels. They connect all together through this area. There's the elevators in level 3, you can find doors in level 2, or just fall in a pit in level 283. To exit, all you need to do is find a staircase which can lead to either levels 3, 5, or 6, and occasionally, if it goes into a basement, then level 71. And while the description for this level may be short, it begins to bring in the monotony of the backrooms. Once you get here, your only options are to either set up shop in one of the groups or the safe areas, or to continue pushing. It's only a matter of time before you either get out or succumb to any of the environmental effects of the levels. But until that happens, you'll be pushing through level after level, occasionally finding some safe location where you have the options to either stay or to stock up and carry on. The whole thing is just this very big push for survival, and if you don't know what you're doing, then you're very likely to fail before you find a way out. Because there are ways out to get back home, but it's just a matter of finding them. For criteria 1, the actual level itself doesn't have any information on how big it is. However, what we do know is that it is pretty empty apart from the other people situated there and a couple of machines around. 2, in this level specifically, the only thing that you have to be paranoid and worry about is how trustworthy the other people are, because even in life or death situations, people will always still be people. 3, exiting the level is pretty easy, as well as if you choose to return here for whatever reason you need to. And 4, finding food and supplies shouldn't be that hard due to the scattered traders and machines around the level, and you're definitely gonna fucking need them after the last levels that you've gotten to. And coming into our last set of sub-levels, we have 4.2, the parking lot of fog. Not a lot of information is known about this sub-level, seeing as we only have one image of it. This is the image. This is all we have. Only 3 recorded people have been there, and it just seems like an empty car park. 4.3, decayed. It's a lot like the rest of level 4, except everything is, well, decayed and moldy. The whole place is severely dark because there is a very big lack of light sources, and although it looks a lot like the main level, it acts a bit differently. The sublevel is made up of what seems to be an industrial-style basement containing concrete pillars, exposed wires, and no electricity. There is also an unopenable door, which has been sighted in one of the rooms, and is the only one to have been found. To enter and exit, there is a very consistent entrance, presumably a door or a hallway. In level 4.4, Crazed State, it's probably one of the most dangerous areas on this list due to the effect that it has. After entering this level, a person's mind will begin to fill up with a lot of thoughts of bloodlust, and this will eventually lead them to finding out why the whole place is just completely covered in organs and blood and all kinds of fucking nasty shit. The main cause of death here is because of the other people here, who also become affected by these thoughts. To enter or exit this level, which I don't know why you would, you just have to interact or no-clip with a dead body. Which, I don't know why you do that either, but pop off, I guess. We also have the surveillance room, which the surveillance room is basically just a room with a bunch of cameras watching a lot of the other levels. These of which you can just travel to using the system by inserting a security card into it, which you can also find throughout the level. The room can move throughout the level, and sometimes you may also find it to be shut off if you're unlucky. The chair room. The chair room is it's a room full of chairs, and every now and again the type of chair will change, resulting in it granting a different effect if you choose to sit on it. Here are a few examples. The armchair. Nothing happens, it's just comfy. The dining chair makes you hungry. The rocking chair freezes you in place until another wanderer can come help you out of it. The wing chairs, they're really fucking warm and it's almost as if you're sat next to a fireplace. The office chair, I'm just gonna fucking take this one straight from the wiki. It is too fucking glorious not to. Only one of these chairs spawn. It is currently and permanently occupied by the leader of the Zealots of the Chairs, and appears to be his throne. His chair theoretically gives the occupant the power to rule over the Zealots through mental and physical domination. The Windsor chair makes the user slightly more caring and for them to pay attention more in conversations. And the easy chair makes the seated person more relaxed and lazy. There are more examples of chairs, but I am not about to fucking read every single one of them out because there is so many fucking chairs. I am not even kidding. So overall, the Backrooms without the entities is, like I've said, a monotonous push for survival. Balancing your needs between isolation, hunger, being able to breathe, or whatever other environmental challenges you will face. In between each and every single safe place, there is a gap of torment which will be different each and every time. And if you're not well informed, then it's very likely that you'll just die from not knowing to do something. So it's at those points between the danger that you have to decide whether or not you'll just have to live here and accept that you're never gonna go back home. Already, the Backrooms, as we've explained it, is a very horrible place to be, and even without talking about your major physical needs like food and water, you also have your own psyche to worry about. A lot of the levels have a lot of psychological effects, take for example the hallucinations in level 0. Even if you manage to find a steady supply of necessities, it's very likely that you'll begin to suffer from some form of mental trauma just due to the situation that you're in. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to be in what is essentially just a ticking death trap, and this is only amplified when we begin to talk about the entities that reside here. Because in the Backrooms, it's not just the other people that you have to worry about. But on its own, the Backrooms is pretty solid at just setting a horrifying experience, even without its entities. But now that we know what the levels are like on their own, it's time to learn what they're like with their respective entities. We know that we already have a pretty liminal, freaky place to begin with. All of the troubles of the environmental hazards are now combined with the new worry that something will be after you. And for this, we can now introduce the class system. Like I mentioned before when referencing the Backrooms to the likes of the SCP Foundation, each level, or at least most levels, have their own class system, which signifies how safe they are, how secure they are, and how many entities they have. This can range from level 0, safe, secure, devoid of entities, to level 5, unsafe, unsecure, entity infestation. As well as this, there are specific labels like undetermined, habitable, dead zone. As well as this, we have levels which even have their own specific custom classes like integral or hunting grounds. And this is of course very important when talking about the entities, because some levels just don't even have any at all. Starting off with level 0. These are now important to us as we begin to explain our entities, starting off with level 0, which, like we know, is completely devoid of people. Once you enter the level, you are just completely alone and you're in your own case of isolation until you exit the level. And while the wiki states, no entities are known to exist within the level, including other humans, if you see, hear, or encounter what you believe to be another wanderer, it is not a human. I'm pretty sure all this refers to is the fact that the level has a lot of hallucinations and that these sightings of other people may just be these hallucinations. And in a way, this first level having absolutely no entities or people serves as a very good thing. Level 0 is usually the first level that people enter when coming into the Backrooms, and if there were entities here, then I suspect that a lot more people wouldn't even make it out of this level, which there is already a lot of people that don't survive the first entry into the Backrooms. And therefore this is why it is dubbed the tutorial level, due to it having only a smaller chunk of what the Backrooms has to offer and gets you prepared for what journey you're about to go through. Level 0 having no entities is very vital to its effect, although unlike its sub-level Zenith Station, level 0 is stated to have minimal entities, and not to be strictly devoid of them. So who knows? Maybe there is something there. Apart from this, the sublevel below 0 has a few entities in its bog section, specifically shrooms, ink blocks, and nippers, however there is no information about them at this time. Our first major difference we find ourselves is in the Manila room, where occasionally you will hear knocking coming from the walls of the room, which drastically increase during those periods of darkness we talked about before. And those which have heard the knocks theorize that it's something else that's living that is causing the knocks. And while the red rooms are labeled as a dead zone, this is only due to there being no exits and no viable way to sustainably live there. Meanwhile, there are still no entities to be found here, same with the Torment. However, one thing that I will mention is that on each and every single level of the Backrooms, no matter what, wretches will always exist if you are there, because you yourself can become a wretch. Wretches are a lot like zombies in the sense that they are these once human, rotted looking entities. They are formed once a person stops looking after themselves, mainly things like a lack of food, water, or sleep may cause you or others to turn into a wretch, and it is overall pretty common in the Backrooms as a whole. The main 3 stages consist of the condition starting as a rash, then causing the mind and body to deteriorate before rotting and becoming a wretch. It is a very eerie concept, especially when now starvation and dehydration aren't what you're fearing in this level anymore. At least, not for the original reasons. Now, coming through our first level with confirmed entities, yes, even in a place where you could choose to just stay in the safe little trader city, you are now in danger of other entities. You had your time of relative safety in level 0, and now you've entered what the Backrooms is truly dangerous for. Remember those light flickers and blackouts? During those times, hostile entities will now begin to appear. However, if you're able to stay in the light or with a group of people, you should be relatively fine. Level 1 has hostile entities, however it manages to ease you into their existence, which is a kind of progression that I like to see in horror. Yeah, the concept of boom, now there's a big scary thing, run, is a really fucking scary concept. However, I feel like it works more for the Backrooms with the concept and idea that the further and further you choose to push, the worse and worse things coming after you are. It's a horrible thing to think about, especially when your only option is to push on, and you know it's only inevitable for it to get worse. Entities that can be found during this time are adult facelings who are essentially just very similar to humans, except their faces are all blurred out. There are multiple versions of them, but for a majority they're pretty neutral and they just act and behave like regular people. However, this won't always be the case. Hounds, which as you can expect are creatures which are very dog-like in their appearance and behavior. Namely, they are also very strangely human, but they walk on all fours and maul anyone who gets too close to them. They get aggressive around other aggressive people, however they can be intimidated by direct eye contact. So they're pretty chill for that. It isn't a permanent fix, however, and they will snap out of it eventually, so it's best to just either avoid them at all costs or run away if you are seen. The Skin Stealers. They are... that is literally just a fucking skinwalker. They are just skinwalkers and they're scary as shit. They can mimic human speech because why wouldn't they? And it's mostly just a matter of whether or not they are hungry as to if they will attack you. But then that also begs the question of how many people in that trader settlement are real people and how many of them are fucking skinwalkers. And finally, it is noted in the wiki that there are scratchers, however I can't find any information on them. But when I search them up, I get this fucker. So, deal with that how you will. Going into the level sub-areas, we can also find the addition of smilers, which are essentially just spooky smiley faces in the dark that will attack you if you don't keep eye contact with it. You can also see how certain patterns form between the entities. In regards to light sources, both of the wikis say different things. One stating that they get aggressive towards the light, and the other noting that they are attracted to the light. But both noting that if you see a smiler, you should turn your light off, and to then just back out of the area slowly and not make any loud noise. Also, during Sector 4 of that long hallway, a skin stealer with death moth wings had been reported, which a death moth is literally just a big moth that will eat you. At least if it's the female ones, the guys are really chill. However, the female ones are a lot bigger and they fucking spit acid, and those are the ones you don't want to fuck with. Getting the introduction of these entities, which you'll find are pretty common in the first few levels, we begin to ask ourselves the question of what's actually going on here, if these things had always existed before coming here, and how bad will they get in later levels. And once again, how many of those people are fucking skinwalkers, because I know one of those fuckers are at least. You could not convince me that there is a whole entire fucking city in this level with skinwalkers, and at least not one of the people in that fucking city are the skinwalkers. That is just how it must fucking be. But this level allows us to become a lot more accustomed to how life in the Backrooms will be. I mean, we got a couple of entities, however they're pretty easy to deal with or are neutral most of the time. However, it allows us to begin questioning how this level of difficulty will increase as time goes on. In level 2, our known entities are Smilers, Death Moths, Hounds, Facelings, and Skin Stealers. One of the groups in level 2 is the followers of Jerry, who while not actually being all that present in the level itself, it is just very easy to find the door to their main base here. So now we can talk about the entity of Jerry, who can also be found in level 1, and in the best ways of putting it, Jerry is just a fucking cult leader parrot. Jerry takes the form of a Hykenif Makor parrot, who, unless tamed via almond water or sunflower seeds, can and will indoctrinate you into the followers of Jerry, and he will put you in a fucking zombie-like state until you get to the main base. So it is best to just stay the fuck away from him unless you want to worship a bird for the rest of your life. Here we are also introduced to the window entity, which is essentially just a window that you can't trust. A figure will point at the target until they get close enough to the window, only to be dragged inside, and it's rumored to just be a void on the other side. However, they are pretty rare here. Clumps are recorded as one of the most lethal presences in this level, at least they used to be, due to the amount of twists and turns. Clumps are just these big bundles of limbs stuck together to make this abomination. However, it's been noted that in recent times the clumps have become a lot less aggressive and will now only attack you if you provoke them first. What, you think I'm gonna try and pronounce that? I'm calling them Gurfers. I don't care because I fucking hate these things. Gurfers are just big spiders with double the legs, and they wait on the fucking ceiling and make poison traps which make you unable to think, move, or react to anything, and then they eat you alive. Yeah, I don't like them. Oh yeah, and then they can also show up in level 1 too, because why wouldn't they? Death rats are a species that most of the time are just very similar looking to big rats with horns. However, they have an ability to screech, which just causes all of the lighting in the surrounding area to flicker until they stop. Usually once they are dead or whatever they are hunting is dead. Cannibal Cuisines. It's a vending machine that sells human parts. The Wranglers, they are big drill snakes, and Photoshop is if your horrid Photoshop creations could jump out of the screen, oh wait, they did. It's a 2D image that can literally just crop you out of existence if it wants to. Growlers. I don't even know how to describe this. Silly string on steroids that's angry. And finally, a Swindlebird was possibly seen here once. And they are literally just a mix of a pigeon and a peacock. Going into the sub-levels, specifically the bee rooms, we have the appearance of phantom bees, which are described as a larger form of a bee in the shadows, typically with very bright glowing wings and or eyes, in colors of blue, yellow, or red. In this sub-level, we can also find the existence of howlers, which are very similar to humans, except they are covered in this dark rock and are notably found by their deep growl, which you can hear at about 10 feet away and from their big glowing green eyes. They are, however, very chill, and if you just leave them alone, they won't bother you unless they have to. Once again, the entities here get a bit more dangerous as we progress, however the change isn't too big to drop the wonder into some impossible situation. Mostly, I just feel like for a lot of the entities here, you just have to make sure you're looking in the right places, especially with things like the Gurfers. They don't really charge at people, they just stick onto the ceiling, so if you don't walk under them, then you're pretty much fine. Still fucking hate them though. Level 3 is noted to be very large, so you're not likely to run into a lot of people. However, due to the absolute fucking abundance of entities here, it's almost impossible to not at least see one whilst you're here. And we've already gone through hounds, facelings, wretches, death moths, skin stealers, smilers, and clumps. However, in this area, we also gain the existence of dullers, who are these grey and very humanoid-esque creatures which lack a face or ears. They wait on the other side of a wall and wait for somebody to walk past that wall, where it will then no-clip its arms through said wall, and then drags the wanderer through that same wall, and then nobody knows what happens after that. The dullers themselves are a very shy species, and if you come across one that isn't up against the wall, then it will most likely run away. So the tip for this one is just don't be unlucky enough to be on the other side of a wall from a fucking duller, I guess. As well as this, we can now find entities called bursters, which are once again humanoid creatures that crawl around on all fours, gaining a more canine leg structure. However, on their backs, they have these many calluses which, when popped, will explode with an acidic fluid. This usually happens when they're agitated or hunting. However, funnily enough, this acid also hurts the entity itself. As well as this, we also have the existence of the disease and the crawler fungus to worry about. Which, while I don't know a lot about the disease, I do know that the crawler fungus is what causes entities and wanderers to become a crawler, which is what anything infected with the fungus is classified as. To catch the fungus, it spreads to humans through liquids, bites, and other infected entities. And if you get infected, good luck, because there's no cure. Also, just speaking outside of Backrooms really quick, if you recognize this image like I did the moment I booted up the page, that is because this entity is based on a real-life fungus called Parubula pulvinata, which usually infects things like cellar spiders and other bugs and puts them into this zombified state, where the end goal of the fungus is just so that the dead body of the insect will spread more of the fungus. And there are actual multiple funguses that do this same thing to different insects, like there's one that is specifically made to fuck over ants, because fuck ants, I guess. I feel like once you get to level 3, the entities do really start to ramp up a lot, especially with just how many there are and with the space being so massive, but yet not massive enough as to where you have a chance of never seeing anything at all. You are very much bound to start getting into situations where if you don't know anything about the entity, it could easily be the end of you. Especially when, unlike level 2, where there's at least the possibility that somebody else can come and help you if they happen to run into you, because like I said before, the area is so big that it's almost impossible to actually run into anyone. I mean, take the fungus for an example. If you don't know it exists, then all it takes is one little bite and then that's it, you're done, you're over, no cure, you're infected now. But I'll save my opinions on some of the entities until the end. And for our final trip to level 4, we can point out that there is an abundance of window entities here, and that any window that isn't blacked out should be avoided at all cost. The only other entities that are commonly found here are hounds and dullers, so it is a very needed break after the horrors of level 3, which brings us back to that monotony I was speaking of before. With the introduction of these entities, we still have that monotonous push to continue forward, except now there's just a chance that some other horrid thing might try and get you, even in places where you were otherwise safe, which gives extra incentive to push on. In the sublevels, we have a couple of sublevel specific entities such as the Lost Cloak, a dark mess which attacks wanderers by quickly floating around them much like a piece of fabric. However, this only happens if they are to view the entity. However, apart from that, we don't really know much. On top of this, in the surveillance room, if the wanderer is to use its traveling ability too much, then an entity known as the Guard will appear who looks like a slightly overweight zombie mall cop, with its uniform to be stated to be both simultaneously on the outside and inside of its skin at different parts. It carries with it just general mall cop items such as flashlights, tasers, and key cards, and while he is dangerous and will stay in the room for a few days, it is known to be very slow and stupid, so he's not really that much of a problem to you otherwise. As well as the Guard, you are also sometimes able to encounter an Aiden, who is probably one of my favorite entities and is just another person in a security outfit. Except this time he has a camera for a head and will protect the wanderer at all costs, knowing about all of the dangerous entities when they're nearby and how to deal with them. He will also give you directions to certain locations and levels if you ask him. And the best part is, if you've met one Aiden, you've met all of the Aidens, as each and every single instance of Aiden shares the same memories, because yes, there are multiple of him, and they are just spread around the lower levels of the Backrooms. And so there isn't a lot of entities on level 4, which I think does really well for it, because while it's not an entirely safe area anymore, it is still pretty safe if you have your right precautions and you're with the right people. Which makes it so that even in an area where you might have been fully safe, an entity can just rock up at any moment and fucking rock your shit. Meaning that nowhere in the Backrooms is truly ever safe, bar probably a couple of specific levels. But looking at both the Backrooms with and without the entities, it's very hard to say that I would think the Backrooms would be better without any of the entities at all. And although I do think that some of the entities could use a rework, or that some of them are a bit too copy-paste from each other, I still think that they add quite a bit of charm and ecosystem to the Backrooms as a whole. I mean, yeah, that liminal isolating vibe that the Backrooms has is very creepy and daunting, but without the threat of something coming to get you and having to rely purely on environmental effects all the time, it'll get washed out pretty easily, and you might as well just choose to stay somewhere safe and to never find a way home. Because hell, I'd rather be in some fucking chill, cool place rather than go back home and do, I don't know, fucking taxes. The Backrooms is not meant to be a vacation, but with the addition of the entities, it brings in this feeling that even in the places where you think you're safe and you could stay there, there's still the threat of some big monster or fungus or your whole body rotting off because you didn't get your 8 hours in. And even with the entities there are still an abundance of levels which specifically state that there are no entities in it whatsoever and choose to rely on just their environmental effects. Take for example levels like 790. Level 790 is just some British snowy village that relies entirely on its environmental effects, trying to kill you with things like shingles falling off of the roofs, temperatures dropping, the fucking blizzard that happens. It's just levels like these that just rely on environmental effects are still just as good as levels that rely on entities, and having this balance between the two causes this need to push on between each level to get to somewhere safe. It balances out this idea that in between all of the chaos you can have short breaks, but that those short breaks can't really last too long. And that to practically live in the Backrooms, it's necessary to find other people in the same situation as you are and to hold off against the many threats coming for you. In my own personal opinion, I think that the entities are a great fit for the Backrooms just purely for the fact that we already have the best of both worlds. There is already this really good balance between levels with entities and levels without, so you can have your really creepy isolated liminal vibe, as well as being able to learn about all the cool biology that the entities have and how to deal with them. And although some people may not agree with me, I think that the entities are pretty cool for the most part. Yeah, there will always be some that are pretty copy-paste of each other and need a little bit of work, but that is bound to happen with anything. Even taking this all the way back to relating it to the SCP Foundation, there are a couple of SCPs in there that have gone through reworks that have been remade and are taken out or eliminated because they're either too OP or they need to be changed or they're too similar to another one. Things like this happen all the time, and so it's bound to happen with the Backrooms too. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys like the entities or do you prefer the liminal isolation kind of Backrooms? This video was a lot longer than I expected, so it's come out a little bit later than usual, but things should go back to normal now. But without further ado, if you've gotten to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next weekend for a Christmas themed video. Bye bye.